We entered the weekend incredibly disappointed, but not surprised by the Biden administration and the Democrats and the CDC allowing the eviction moratorium to expire. And as that was happening, a protest developed. Cori Bush and others refusing to leave, sitting on the steps, sleeping on the steps of the Capitol, trying to draw attention to the fact that millions of Americans' lives were due to be ruined, and almost immediately. And what do you know? They said it couldn't be done. Some of them said it shouldn't be done. But the protest apparently worked, because days after a national eviction moratorium expired, the Biden administration on Tuesday issued a new, more limited freeze that remains in effect through October 3rd. Like the previous order, the 2-month moratorium issued on Tuesday comes from the CDC, a weird point which we're gonna return to. The new ban on evictions covers parts of the United States that are experiencing what the CDC calls substantial and high spread of the coronavirus. As of Tuesday afternoon, that's the vast majority of US counties. And the order, which cites the rise of the Delta variant, says without this order, evictions in these higher transmission areas would likely exacerbate the increase in cases. So in a little bit, we're gonna turn to Cori Bush and those who made this available. Right now, I wanna talk about the actual substance of it. So I do find it a bit ironic that this is limited in that it's only gonna be in the areas that have a lot of COVID. So in a way, thank you, Tucker Carlson. Thank you, Ben Shapiro. Thank you to all of the right wingers who have caused this pandemic to be as horrible as it is more than a year in, because at least now that means a lot of people will be in areas where the eviction moratorium continues. But that said, Francesca, there are some places it won't stretch to, and it only lasts for 2 months. And it's still just an eviction moratorium. It's not a clearing of rental debt. So with all of those acknowledgments, what do you think about this?
I mean, I think it's incredibly important, and it shows the power that Congress people have, even outside of the actual procedures and processes. Again, I think unconventional thinking and more of an inside-outside strategy, even for people who are Congress people, works. So Cori Bush proved that. That being said, it is a very small victory. It is just 2 months. It's still gonna get maybe battled in the Supreme Court, but who cares? Because people will be in their homes. They'll have 2 more months to be able to try to find work, to make rent, to get states and local governments to dole out the rental assistance money that has been promised and that was, I believe, in the American Rescue Plan signed by Joe Biden. So get that money out there. People need that money ASAP. But yeah, it is crucial. It's sad that it took this much work and effort and sort of pots and pan clanging to get something that was so minor that Biden could have done and should have done when he saw that there were 2 days left in Congress, before recess, and it was like, all right, this is not gonna happen. Let's just do this, because clearly states are having trouble. And yeah, the Delta variant is spreading and will continue to spread. But of course, fascism loves Delta. Like I love how you're like, oh yeah, Tucker, thank you, Tucker Carlson, blah, blah, blah. But you know what? Fascism loves inequality, loves desperation, because the more desperate people are, the more they'll be like, yeah. An authoritarian, totalitarian dictatorship is totally fine with me. Let's go for it. Anything to make the trains run on time, stability, blah, 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 blah. Just do it. And so we can't forget that like destitution is their goal.
Exactly, and they certainly do not mind it. But before we move to more of an acknowledgement of all the great work that you were just talking about there is one more point which I guess is just me being stupid. I don't know, I guess I missed something. I read a lot about this and I haven't yet figured it out. So if you recall, I think it was Friday when we were incredibly critical of the fact that the Biden administration had waited until like the last minute to say, hey, maybe we should do something. And then they seem to say, well, it's really about Congress. I mean, the Supreme Court said Congress had to do it, so it's really about Congress. And then Nancy Pelosi said, well, it's really about the CDC, and then the CDC wouldn't answer the phone call. It was all this like passing the buck or whatever. So now we've got the extension, and it's the CDC that's doing it. The Biden administration said the CDC is doing this. Okay, so Gene Sperling, who oversees the White House's rollout of COVID-19 relief, told reporters on Monday that Biden had quadruple checked whether he had the legal grounds to extend the moratorium unilaterally but said ultimately his hands were tied by a Supreme Court ruling that blocked the CDC from extending its past moratorium beyond the end of July. A last-minute effort by Congress to extend the ban failed. Sperling pushed back against criticism from Democrats on Capitol Hill, who argued the White House should have acted sooner in extending the earlier moratorium. He said the Supreme Court made it clear that congressional authorization was needed on the matter. So he said, no, we checked, we double dog checked, we can't do it. It needs congressional authorization. And so Congress tried, I guess. It was like so fast I didn't even notice it. It didn't work. And then the CDC just did it. But they said that it couldn't. What I don't understand what's going on. So why did we have to go through this rigmarole for 72 hours if they could have just unilaterally done it?
Because
what am I missing?
You're missing that no one was going to notice, and that no one in power was going to notice, and that they were banking on that, right? And that no reporter was gonna go to the front lines of evictions and very few, and talk to them, at least not on national news. So you fly under the radar. Oops, we tried. Ooh, we passed the buck. I get but it's done. And then along comes Cori Bush, right? And what began as a stunt, which look, sometimes stunts lead to things, right? And it was like, oh no, now there's attention on this thing that we sort of deliberately forgot to do. And now we can do it. And suddenly we found a backbone. But it is so sad that no Democratic leader, not the president, not the Speaker of the House, is able to stand up and say, no, we're not gonna let people be thrown out onto the streets during a pandemic. And damn it, I will go to the Supreme Court with this. I stand by this because these are my values. And then you go back to Trump, right? And you're like, oh, I know his values because he, spewed them all over the place through executive orders that were then litigated to death, right? And some of them still went through. Some of them were still enacted by the Department of Homeland Security. Parents and children were still separated at the border, even though it was illegal. Like all of the things that was like, at least he had a plan and moral and immoral moral, like a lack of morals. Do you know what I'm saying? It was like, oh, there it is. Whereas Biden, it's like, well, we could, just stand for something, buddy.
Or just try.
Just try.
If the Republicans want to sue you to stop it, make them. You be the one that's protecting people from being thrown out on the street during a pandemic. Let them be the ones trying to make sure they get booted, okay? And maybe you win, maybe you don't win. I think that you're completely underestimating the odds that you do win. But either way, at least you're the one who is trying. What are you there for if not to at least try? You're not there to quadruple check, to just look at papers and be like, well, I guess everybody's screwed. Try, you're the president, okay? People will appreciate it at least if you give some effort.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.